Hello and welcome to the Gaggenau Culinary series. My name is Daniel Calvert. I am the chef of Belon restaurant in Soho, Hong Kong. One of our dishes today that we're going to be presenting is our tarte au chocolat, Bernard Pacot. It's a very famous recipe from a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Paris, L'Ambroisie. It's a signature dish that we've taken to Belon and done our own inspiration and interpretation. We're going to start with making the pastry for the tarte today. Take your flour and sugar and add it to your mixing bowl, making sure there's no lumps in your pastry. Next, add your sugar. Once fully incorporated, we're going to add our butter piece by piece so it doesn't clump up together. Very small pieces like this. Not too cold, not too hot. Using your hands as body temperature to heat up the butter. Next process, we're going to take our fingertips and slowly rub the butter inside the flour until it looks like breadcrumbs. Once the butter is incorporated into your flour, we're going to crack 2 eggs inside the mix. Using your fingers, bring the eggs together. Slowly bring it together to make a dough. Don't overmix it at this point because your pastry will become chewy. Once you've brought your pastry together, we're going to rest it in the fridge for about 25 minutes. Once the pastry's rested for about 20 minutes, you'll have something that looks a bit like that. In the meantime, we're going to take our tarte ring and we're going to flour and butter it so that the tarte doesn't stick to the tin. Take your butter with your hand and rub a thin layer on the bottom of the tarte. Take a small amount of flour. Dust every side. We're going to roll out the pastry next. Take your time and don't touch the pastry too much. There's a lot of butter in this recipe, so it's going to get very soft very quick. Continue to roll out your pastry until it's the right thickness. Just be very careful at this stage. It's very delicate pastry. Don't use too much flour, but just use enough. Take your time to make sure it's evenly rolled out all sides, otherwise it won't cook as evenly as you'd like. Pick up the pastry using the rolling pin and roll it over your tarte shell. Pressing deep into the sides. Use a bit of flour so it doesn't stick to your fingers. Once it's pushed into the tarte shell, take your rolling pin and roll it across the top. Remove any excess. This needs to go in the freezer for about 20 minutes to make sure it's firm. After about half an hour in the freezer, it'll be nice and set and ready to bake. If you bake it from warm, all the butter will melt out the pastry before it has a chance to cook. It will not hold the sides. If you take a look here, it's nice and firm, well rested, it's not going to shrink. We're going to take an even layer of rice to put inside the pastry so it doesn't fall down when we bake, and with what's called blind baking. If you look here, we have a package of rice and barley, which is used to blind bake our pastry so that the outside does not fall when we're baking inside. Take your package, put it inside the pastry, making sure it's completely evenly covered. We're going to bake this about half an hour at 170 degrees in your oven right here. Put it directly onto a tray and straight inside the oven. For about half an hour, take the pastry out the oven. And you'll see it's evenly baked and hasn't shrunk too much at all. The next part we're going to make is the fill-in, which is the sabayon. First step of the sabayon, we're going to take our chocolate and put it inside our bowl. Evenly spread it out so it melts evenly. Take your cream. Bring this up to the boil, just on a medium heat. Pour it directly over the chocolate. Allow that chocolate to melt on its own. Next step, we're going to make the sabayon. We're going to take 2 egg yolks, 1 whole egg, and whip them with sugar. We're going to whip it for about 5 minutes. After the cream has melted the chocolate, just incorporate both of them together like a ganache. Keep that in a warm place. Once the sabayon has quadrupled in size, we're going to slowly add this to the chocolate mix that we kept warm earlier. So take your chocolate, take about a third, gently fold in the mix. Careful not to knock out any of that air that you've spent the time making. Gently fold the rest in, and then we're going to pour it into the tarte shell. Pour everything directly into the shell. Take a second and even out the mix. This can go straight into the oven. 170 for about 8.5 minutes. After around 8.5 minutes, we're going to take it out the oven. You'll see that it's risen up, but it still has a bit of a wobble inside there. It should be cooked perfectly. We're going to allow that to cool for about half an hour to 1 hour. Once the tart is cooled, we're going to dust the top generously with cocoa powder to cover the whole top. You don't want to see any of the chocolate mousse, you want to completely cover with cocoa powder. After about an hour, it should be cool enough to slice. The tart will sink just gently, but that's okay. Take your knife straight down the middle, and gently pull away. What I like to do, I take a small amount of the mousse mix, put it on the plate so the tart does not slip around. And serve with raw cream on the side. We have tarte au chocolat Bernard Paco.